Oh, I'm pretty good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the 4th episode of Church Jams Now.
Church Jams Now, Volume 4.
Volume 4. For those of y'all that are just now tuning in, Church Jams Now is myself, Kylan Savage.
And myself, TJ Smith.
And the idea of the show is we are both former youth group kids and current music nerds. And we go through famous Christian rock albums from the 90s and 2000s and see if they're any good.
Do they hold up?
Yeah.
Are they bops or are they flops?
Who knows? How do you feel about it so far, TJ? Let's check in. Let's do a little State of the Union. Let's see how we're feeling about it. At this point, we still haven't released any episodes. Let's tear back the curtain a little bit.
Yes.
We're creating this in a vacuum. So either lots of people are listening to this and really enjoying it, and for that, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
But it could also be my dad's the only person that ever listens to this.
Hi, Dad. And that would be okay, too.
That's true.
But yeah, no, I think we're having a good time. I certainly am.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to bounce back to the past and spend some time with these classic albums.
Yeah. You know, one thing that we haven't really addressed that much in the other episodes is we really started recording this right when the COVID-19 thing happened. We were all in lockdown. And so we've recorded remotely, but this is the first time that we're recording together in person. We get to look each other in the eye, not via Zoom. There's a different energy. I feel a little bit of a different vibe. We are still socially distant.
Yes. Getting to look you in the eye, there's a platonic intimacy that I experienced now that I didn't in the past.
That's very true.
It's good to see you, Kylan.
You too. I like platonic intimacy.
Yeah.
I miss it. I miss any intimacy with
I know.
anybody that's not my wife or my dog.
Remember hugs? Remember those?
Vaguely.
Yeah.
Vaguely. Yeah. So none of that really matters. You know, it does matter. We're getting into some music.
Yeah, we are.
If you guys remember last week, we talked about Five Iron Frenzy.
We did indeed.
That was a great episode. I was really stoked about that. Like, it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I think it turned out skawsome.
Yeah. Skawsome. Oh, hell yeah. But if you listened last week, then you will know also, if you read the title of this podcast, I guess you would know too, that we are talking about Sixpence None The Richer. Let's just dive right in. In the words of Stephen Curtis Chapman, we're diving in.
Going deep.
I think I'm going to do that every episode.
I hope you do.
Unless we do that Stephen Curtis Chapman record, then
you won't say
Then I won't, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty quick first part because I'm not super familiar with Sixpence None The Richer, besides obviously the mega hit that was Kiss Me.
Right.
But beyond that, I don't have much familiarity with them.
And I would say I have even less than you do. Yeah. So I've said about as much as I can, other than they're a band, and I just knew that they were vaguely Christian.
Yeah. So I guess we're already getting into it. So usually we save our recollections of the record for after a little history of the band, but I guess we can just jump right into it. I know that they also did a cover of There She Goes that was really big.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Beyond that, I feel like Kiss Me was in every TV show and movie in like 1998.
All of them.
But I didn't even know that they were like a Christian band for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of always heard them in Hastings.
Right.
Or television shows on WB that
Yep.
I felt like I wasn't supposed to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Because like teen dramas. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Of like being raised in a religious home, like not being able to... I got to watch Seventh Heaven.
Oh.
Seventh Heaven was the one because it was about the Christian family.
Right.
Where the guy was the pastor and Touched by an Angel.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Touched by an Angel?
I do.
I know this is way, way, way a tangent, but I feel like it's around this time.
Yeah, it's within the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's such a weird time that on primetime television, there were two major shows about very Christian things.
Mm-hmm. And yet they seemed to do really well.
Yeah. I remember Touched by an Angel being huge. I remember I had a novelization of Touched by an Angel that I read when I was like 8. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was like a 400-page fiction book
You were reading a 400-page book when you were 8?
Yeah.
Kylan,
I used to be really smart.
You're amazing.
I used to be really smart. Yeah. So I don't know. I we kind of talked about with DC Talk and stuff like that. I feel like specifically the mid to late 90s, there was a lot more overlap in terms of evangelical Christian entertainment entering secular pop culture.
Right.
That I feel like no one really had before or since. Mm-hmm. And I wonder what that is about that time in America.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously our perspective is going to be biased based on the experience that we had growing up in the 90s, and not being able to see back into history a little more experientially. But I do think it's interesting to consider that maybe America was a more staunchly Christian nation in earlier decades, and then became a little more mainstream secular as far as entertainment goes,
right,
in like the 70s, 80s. And then it was almost like in the 90s, Christian quote unquote pop culture was like swinging back, like the pendulum was swinging back,
right, yeah,
and saying like, oh yeah, well, we can produce good content too, here it is.
Right, yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think so. And I think that was probably like, that seemed to be on the tail end of the rise of televangelists and
right,
things like that, where I think just more people were exposed to that aspect of Christianity.
Right.
And so
through media.
Yeah, but it's definitely, I feel like bands like Sixpence None The Richer, which I don't think they were overtly Christian. I'm curious once we get into the album to see really, but they didn't seem like an overtly Christian band.
Right.
And I wonder if a lot of people in the Christian community, how they felt about it at the time. I mean, we were both young,
Yep. I feel like the only reason I even knew or thought that they were is because maybe they made it onto like some kind of Christian hits tape or something, or CD, and maybe through that list of songs I noticed them and then kind of cataloged that like, oh, they're Christian.
Yeah.
They're on this mixtape.
Right, yeah.
Would have been called a mixtape at the time, but
a compilation disc.
Compilation disc.
Yeah,
that's the
go.
right terminology. Way to go, Kylan.
No problem. All right, cool. So let's get into it a little bit. Let's talk about who is in Sixpence None The Richer. So they were formed in 1992. And they started in New Braunfels, Texas.
Wow.
I know we're both Texas boys. So,
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
But I'm not going to talk about past members because I'm not super familiar with a lot of them. But Lee Nash is the lead singer. You also have Matt Slocum, who I believe is the guitarist. Justin Carey and Rob Mitchell seem to be the core of Sixpence None The Richer. Like any band that's been around that long, there have been a lot of lineup changes and things like that.
Sure.
But it looks like they broke up in 2004 and then got back together in 2007 and are still recording and writing music and all that kind of stuff.
I didn't know they were still doing it.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Good for them.
I know. I'm always curious about that. Like, I think about that specifically in terms of emo bands that I was really into in high school.
Yep.
And I've noticed a trend too with a lot of these Christian bands that either break up and get back together or just continue on. Mm-hmm. Whereas I feel like musically, the things that I'm interested in, I've sort of moved on. Like, it's always really surprising to me to see that these bands are still performing and recording and making albums and stuff. Because I'm always like, who are the people that are in 2019 or 2020 going to buy the new Sixpence None The Richer record?
Right.
I was going to say see them in concert, but,
Yeah, we're not doing that these days.
Yeah. But that's just interesting to me.
Yeah,
like,
it is. I feel like it's kids that are the age you were when you heard about them now.
Yeah?
You know what I mean?
You think so?
I mean, if they find their target audience, maybe they just keep making music for that window.
Yeah.
Like that age group and that demographic, that cultural dynamic, and they just stick with it.
That's true.
I'm just throwing that out there. But like, I feel like if, because I knew, like when I grew up in the church, Reliant K was my jam, right? Like, as we've mentioned, a lot of other bands. They were one of those that I loved, and then I moved into a phase of like appreciating them on a more casual basis. But then as I grew up, the kids like coming into the youth group as I was like graduating from high school, they were all about Relient K, and they were more familiar with their newer works. It's almost like a passing of the torch where, you know, the band keeps cranking out the same, not the same music, but the same sort of music for the same audience. And maybe the ones that got into them when they were younger and they're diehard fans, they keep following them and they grow with them, and maybe they also adopt some new listeners.
Yeah.
I think with bands like that have stayed together and continued to record music over multiple decades, I feel like they're just gonna make music to make music, and they'll find their listenership.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I should say as well, with all of that, I don't mean any of that disparagingly, because
Right.
I would love that.
Of course.
I would love to just have, like, to not be crazy famous, but to be able to make music consistently for 20 plus years and have a core audience of people that will
keep following you.
Yes, exactly.
And you might adopt new listeners as you go too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
It is what's up. So good for you.
Yeah.
Sixpence. Way to keep cranking it out.
Totally. Okay, so I found out a little bit about the band. I never knew that their name actually, it was a quote from Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis, which is like the most, I'm in college and I'm in a Christian band thing you can do for a name, right? Like,
it really is. Like, I'm sort of philosophical.
Exactly.
Look at me, guys.
Yeah. Not that Mere Christianity is bad. It's a great book, but that's totally something I would have done.
Oh, yeah.
In college.
Completely.
Just been like, yeah, I'm going to take this obscure quote from this awesome philosophical Christian book, and that's going to be the name of.
And you probably like wouldn't be very vocal about it. Like you might kind of shrug your shoulders and look down at the ground and be like, oh yeah, it's just from Mere Christianity.
Right.
No big deal. You probably never heard of it.
Yeah. Probably have a tattoo of it on my arm. Yeah. So the quote, basically, at that point in the book, says, I'm pulling this directly from Wikipedia. That's usually our biggest source for
read it
this
off,
kind of stuff.
baby.
All right. A little boy asks his father if he can get a sixpence, a very small amount of English currency, to go and get a gift for his father. The father gladly accepts the gift, and he's really happy with it, but he also realizes that he's not any richer for the transaction. C.S. Lewis was comparing that to his belief that God has given him and us the gifts that we possess, and to serve him the way we should do it humbly, realizing how we got the gifts in the first place. So that was actually the lead singer, Lee Nash, talking about it on The Late Show with David Letterman. That was her explanation. That is a really cool, like, as much as I was just a second ago making fun of it, I do really like when bands put a lot of thought into naming things.
Yep.
I do think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and to be able to so concisely talk about it, I really respect that as well.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I know. Oh, okay, here we go. Here is where they cross paths with someone we've talked about quite a bit before. Mr. Weirdo himself, Steve Taylor.
Oh, shoot.
Who did all the Newsboys stuff. So they signed, in 1997, they signed to Steve Taylor's label, Squint Entertainment.
Okay.
And I don't think that Steve Taylor produced that album, but I do know, remember we talked about this, he directed the music video for Kiss Me.
Right.
So he was kind of tied up in a lot of these alternative Christian bands in the mid-90s.
Right. He just got his fingers in a lot of different...
Yeah, he was like the late 90s Christian version of Brian Eno.
Right.
In terms of like U2 and Talking Heads and all that, you know, that 70s, 80s alternative rock, how he kind of, anything that you're really interested in and you thought was really cool, you go back and look, you're like, oh, Brian Eno did that. Same with Steve Taylor, I'm finding out. Like, I didn't realize how influential Steve Taylor was to a lot of these bands. Do we need to do like a specific Steve Taylor
episode?
Like a bonus episode where we just do a deep dive on Steve Taylor?
I feel like maybe he woke up one day in like middle school or something and he was like, I'm going to be the CCM Brian Eno.
Probably. Probably.
And then he did it.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
Hold on, my wife texted me.
Hey, wife.
She said she loves me and says hi to you.
Oh.
And that we should open a window. All right, yeah. So I don't know. There's not much else. Okay, so I don't think they won. They didn't win any Grammy awards, but they were nominated twice.
Okay.
Once for Best Pop Performance for Kiss Me.
Gotcha.
And for Best Rock Gospel Album, their first album in 1997. Remember, we talked about this in the very first episode.
Yep.
Where most of the winners of the Best Rock Gospel Album were Petra and DC Talk. And then they got rid of the award in 2012. Okay, so I've been looking up. I can't quite find a specific reason why there's a discrepancy here. So if anyone knows, that would be awesome. Let us know. But the album came out in 1997, and everything I'm reading is that it was nominated for the Best Rock Gospel Album that year. But when I'm looking through the Grammy Awards for Best Rock Gospel Album, it says that it wasn't nominated until 1999.
2 years later.
Which is really strange, because
Crazy.
if it did come out in 1997, then it would have lost to Jesus Freak.
Right. As we know.
But if 1999, like this says, it lost to Ashley Cleveland's You Are There.
Who?
No clue. But the other nominees that year were Petra, Big Tent Revival, and Audio Adrenaline for Some Kind of Zombie.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. So it looks like, they became really big in that late 90s, early 2000s. Came out with a couple albums. Then in 2004, they broke up. And in 2007, they decided to get back together. They did a Christmas album. Every Christian band has to do a Christmas album.
You got to do a Christmas
pretty much
album.
Almost any artist has to do a Christmas album at some point.
You got to do it.
The last thing it says on their Wikipedia page, on November 12th, 2016, the band performed at Love Love Rock Festival in Taiwan.
Okay.
So
I bet that was quite an experience.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about this band. But I think that's kind of why we picked it too,
Yep.
We're not, the first three, or the first two, we were both pretty familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Third one I was less so.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're kind of evening the playing field, where
Sure are.
neither of us really has any expectations. Like, what do you think this album's going to be like? Based solely on what you know right now of Sixpence None The Richer.
I think it's going to be a pretty, middle of the road, pleasant listening experience.
Yeah.
Just kind of like a chill, soft rock.
I'm imagining very, second wave coffee shop.
Yep.
Late 90s Starbucks.
Oh, yeah.
With soft lighting, maybe beanbag chairs.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just
I do.
that kind of
A lot of
coffee
weird,
house feel.
pastel colors that don't really work together.
Right.
But they're there.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm feeling too.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's going to be any standout hits besides Kiss Me. I'm always curious about that. When bands that are ostensibly one-hit wonders, when you do a deep dive into the rest of their catalog, even specifically other songs that are on the same record,
Right.
I've found that, either you find other songs that are way, way, way better than that giant single, or you find the rest of the record is pretty weak and all it does is just kind of hold up that one
The single.
big single.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to...
Yeah, I'll say this. A lot of my favorite bands, ever since I kind of started really delving into music, as far back as I can remember, a lot of my favorite bands, I liked a lot of their deep cuts or, final tracks or whatever a lot more than their singles. In fact, I'd get real tired of the singles.
Right, yeah.
And just didn't really see what was so special about them. But I loved that band because of track 6,
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever. So, yeah, I'm really curious to see how this album holds up with that. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Well, do we have anything else you want to talk about? Like I said, we said right up top, this I think will be kind of quick little first part. We are at 25 minutes.
I just kind of wonder whether you think this album's going to be a flop or a bop, Kylan.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
Man, we don't really have a middle option.
Nope. We don't. Maybe we should.
No, I think we got to keep it. We got to keep it flop or bop.
Fair enough.
I think what oh god. So DC Talk, I thought was going to be a bop. It was a flop. Take Me to Your Leader. That was going to be a bop. It was a bop.
It was, yeah.
What did I say about Five Iron Frenzy?
I don't recall.
I think it ended up being a flop.
For you, yeah.
But I don't remember what I predicted it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? I'm just switching up. I think it's going to be a flop. I think Kiss Me is really going to stand out. But everything else I think could have been done by any other Paula Cole or Tracy Chapman or something.
Yep.
I don't think there's going to be anything really super interesting to me.
Right.
And I just hate, I want every album to be a bop. And I always feel really bad.
Of course.
And I don't mean that with any disrespect to Sixpence None The Richer. I just don't know if it's going to really hold. I mean, it really was like their first album too.
Right.
And I think with a lot of bands' first albums, there is a sort of rawness to them. You know, there's sort of an emotional quality of, there is an excitement of, we've been working on these songs for a long time. Right. Usually the first album is better than the second album because you have a lot more time to think about it, but you're also inexperienced when it comes to being in a studio. But then this one song became massive.
Right. So
I wonder if the rest of the album is just going to sit under the cloud of that one massive song. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with flop. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I like what you're saying, and it's true that, yeah, the Freshman album is like, there's a raw, vulnerable quality to it. And I've always, that has always endeared me to a lot of first albums. And there have been a lot that didn't really land for me for that exact same reason. So I'm curious, especially kind of going back, listening retroactively to this, having never heard these songs, I wonder if I'll be a little more graceful.
Right.
So I am going to say that I think it's going to be a slight bop. I'm going to put it in the bop category.
Bop adjacent.
Bop adjacent. That's good, yeah. Yeah, so we'll see.
Okay.
I'm excited.
All right. Well, we're going to take a little break and we're going to listen to this album and we will be right back with our analysis on Church Jams Now.
Stay tuned. Hey, jammers. TJ here with a quick reminder about our Patreon. You know, if you like what we do, you're digging the podcast and you want to dig a little deeper, you can support us on Patreon. There's all kinds of different tiers that we have available, starting as low as $2 a month. You can get early episodes, and then other tiers include bonus content and something that we're really excited about called the Cover of the Month Club. So if that's something you'd be interested in, you can find and support us on patreon.com or through the Patreon app just by searching Church Jams Now. All right, thanks.
All right, welcome back to Church Jams Now. We just spent a beautiful hour sitting down by the river with my Bluetooth speaker, listening to Sixpence None The Richer.
It was lovely.
It was lovely.
A nice sunny day.
It was. I don't know. It felt very peaceful.
It did.
It's definitely better than listening to this while doing the dishes in my house.
Yeah, I hate doing the dishes at your house, Kylan. Why do you make me do that?
I can't think of anything clever. I'm too hot. I take off my sweater. All right, so should we get right into it?
Let's do it, man. We did talk about doing something fun for this back half, if this album were a person.
Oh, yes. Okay, so this is a segment we're going to do occasionally, probably specifically on episodes we think might run a little short. If this album were a person, famous or otherwise, who do you think this album would be?
And why?
Yeah. All right, well, you got an answer?
I don't.
I got to think about it.
But I thought we could maybe do it halfway through.
Okay.
There's 13 tracks on this album. So maybe around track 6.
Perfect. If you guys have listened to 4 episodes thus far, hopefully you get a little bit of a sense of our personality.
Yes.
So maybe guess who you think we're going to say.
Good luck.
Good luck. Because I don't even know what I'm going to say yet.
No clue.
Let's get right into it. We start with track 1, We Have Forgotten.
liked the intro.
I did too. I wrote it as a very 90s intro.
Yes. And I liked the verse. I said the bass seems blurry.
It does. I was not impressed with the bass on this track.
No.
There was not that sweet, sweet bass I was hoping for.
Like both the playing and the production.
Yeah,
like
it felt very like a guitar player that was taking over bass. They did the root notes. They were very adequate, but they weren't adding a lot to the production.
Right. Also, the verses on this one make me think of like a down-tempo Regina Spektor song.
Okay, that's interesting. I wrote Mazzy Star.
Oh, yeah.
It felt very Mazzy Star. That, what is the big Mazzy Star song? Fade Into You.
Yep.
Fade Into You.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt very much along those lines.
Right.
Little did I know that would be a precursor for how I felt about a lot of this record.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I love the guitar on this too. One thing about this whole record, the guitar tone is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I love that very, like the guitar tone or the guitar playing that's very like open chords on an electric guitar, like playing electric guitar kind of like an acoustic guitar.
Oh, yeah.
That feels very of the time.
Yep.
But I really enjoyed it.
That's kind of the only way I know how to play electric guitar.
Yeah. I mean, me too. I started out as a...
Resonate with that.
Yep. I know power chords and how to play like an acoustic guitar.
I said the guitar solo before that second verse made me think of like Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
But that was also a lot of this stuff too.
Once again, yeah, it's just very much of its time.
Right.
The one thing about this song, I kept waiting for it to get bigger. I like kept waiting for a drop.
Right.
Like something big to happen. And it never did.
Yep.
It got really jammy, but nothing really happened. This was kind of the thing we talked about the second half of a lot of the Newsboys songs.
Right.
Like where they just kind of kept going and nothing.
It did never evolve.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. So it got kind of boring after a while.
On a similar note, I wrote that like I liked the verse. I thought it was really interesting, both like the progression, kind of the dynamic of it, the lyrical feel, and then the chorus. Like it just didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
I didn't like the progression. The melody wasn't interesting.
Yeah.
I just kind of got bored. And then when she went back to the verse again, I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm back into this, you know?
Exactly. Something I did find interesting about this too, like when she started doing harmonies on top of her main vocal, I could definitely tell how much of an influence this was on Isley in particular.
Yes.
For all
I was
the emo
trying to put
fans.
my finger on what band I knew growing up that this reminded me of, and that's it.
Yeah, vocally a lot of the harmonies and stuff, it felt very, very, very much early Isley.
That's cool. I'm so glad that you were able to put your finger on it like that, 'cause I would not have placed it, and that's it. Well, exactly.
The way I wrote it too, I just literally wrote, okay, Isley. Oh yeah, the first line, dreams inconsistent angel things, also feels very 90s.
Yeah.
Like it feels very flowery, but doesn't really mean
Say anything. Yep, that's 90s.
Spoiler alert, that I felt that way about a lot of the record.
Okay.
When I was looking up all the lyrics to the songs as we were listening to them, it seemed like there were not a lot of lyrics per song.
Yep.
But she packed, or whoever, who are the main credited songwriters? Matt Slocum,
Chris Donahue.
and Chris Donahue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think the lead singer, I don't think she really wrote anything. I think she was just mainly vocals. I feel like they packed a lot of flowery language in not a lot of lyrics.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know, it was very faux deep.
Yeah.
A lot of it felt very like college coffee house vibe.
Right.
This whole album felt like I was watching a set at a local coffee shop in the late 90s.
Drinking your vanilla caramel
Cappuccino latte. Polite clapping after every song. Yeah, that's really all I got for the first song. It's not the best album opener.
The violin solo toward the end was cool.
That was cool. They did utilize a lot of strings.
Lots of strings on this
the
album.
record.
Yeah, that's about all I've got as well.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to track number 2, Anything.
This is my 45th depressing tune. It looking for money as they clean my artistic woe. And when I give birth to the child.
I love the transition. They did a lot of really cool, seamless transitions throughout the record. I always appreciate that.
Yeah, they're all about like the seamless transitions.
Yeah.
That's to their credit on this whole album, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
They chose which songs to transition well and the order of the songs, and then they chose which songs not to do transitions on very well. In addition, because that's important. You could really wear out that trope. Like
yes,
if every
definitely. If every song transitioned,
like shifts into the next one, that could get old.
So this goes back to what I was saying a second ago. I do feel like this whole album feels like a set, like a live, like this probably before they recorded the album, this was probably their live set.
Right.
That they played every Saturday night at the local coffee shop.
Front to back.
All the way through.
Exactly like it's on the record.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, but this song, after the transition, I love the acoustic guitar and the phaser on the electric guitar. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was cool. I think it was the first lyric, maybe, or one of the first lyrics. Looking for money when they clean my artistic womb. Wow.
Yeah. That feels super 90s too, but that's good.
It's good.
It's very good.
It stuck with me. I was like,
yeah.
Whoa. It's quite the image.
I didn't look up the lyrics for this. Did they say artistic womb or wound?
I didn't look them up either. That's just based on what I thought I heard.
Okay. Let's
to
check
me,
that
the
out.
visual of artistic womb is really striking because, as anybody that is a creative on any level knows, like, a lot of times when you're making something, you feel like you're birthing a child, in a sense. Even though that may seem over the top, like it, I think is an apt description. So
yeah, so the lyric is artistic womb.
Okay, good.
You're right. Oh yeah, this song references the burning bush.
Yeah, I liked that line too.
And I think one of the only biblical references on the record.
We'll see.
Okay. All right. Did you pick up on some that I didn't catch?
Maybe.
I saw there's a couple more that I wrote down, but this was like the most pronounced.
Definitely the first like overt one.
Yeah.
The burning bush type sign, but anything would be fine. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Fun little lyric.
I thought this felt like the perfect soundtrack song.
Mm-hmm.
This felt very like I could see this on a WB show or a 90s romantic comedy or something.
Right. I did want the drums and bass to kick in a little sooner on this one.
Yeah.
I felt like it got a little stale with just the guitar and the vocal towards the beginning.
Towards the end though, when they went into that weird jam, what the heck is going on with that snare drum?
Yeah, man, it went from like 4/4 to 6/8. So I feel like the rest of the song was in 4/4, and then it went to 6/8, and the snare was on 5.
Yeah, can you want to play that a little bit? Like clap that out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, which is not typical for a 6/8 progression.
Very weird feel.
Yeah.
Which I think was the first moment for me that really like landed them in the jam band spot in my brain.
Yes,
for the rest of this album.
One thing I did not realize is how much of a jam band they are.
Really, really jammy.
Super jammy.
To their credit and not.
Yeah, well,
there are moments where it works.
I'll talk about that a little bit more on a later song.
But again, it's like you're using that coffee shop description. Yes. It's like they just went ham on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. All right, you got anything else for anything?
I was trying to figure out whether the woodwinds and strings were real or whether they were synthesizer parts.
Yeah,
I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out. I think it's a combination.
Could be.
Well, because also think about like the sampling technology in 1997 was not quite what it is today. But I doubt that they had the budget for like a full or a semi-full orchestra for everything. I think they were pretty strategic. Like from a production standpoint, that is like they probably did a really good job of saving money and keeping on budget by mixing some of those things. Like some of the strings, like some of the lines that just felt like one note stretched out felt like Mellotron strings.
Right.
And then I think they probably brought in just a couple of live elements to sort of mask the synthesized elements.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really smart.
It is. I like I liked the staccato strings that were kind of at the end of the last chorus.
Mm-hmm.
That was really nice. And those felt real, at least.
Yeah.
Whether they were or not, I don't know. But I did say, too, that there were points in this song that got really busy. And they were like, it was like distractingly busy.
Yeah.
There were just a lot of strings, woodwinds, drums, bass, multiple guitars, and her vocals. Not to say that can't work, but like there were a lot of moments in the song that it was a little cacophony.
Yep.
As opposed to intentional. That's all I got for that one.
Sweet. All right, so song number 3, The Waiting Room.
Fight till your fists bleed, baby.
Got another really cool transition.
Yep.
I liked that. This was really when I felt like this was like a set, like a live set that they've worked on a lot.
Yep.
All the transitions felt really organic.
And there's a major dynamic shift, too, from the last song to this one. It gets a little languid.
Yeah.
Like, she's just hanging out.
Yeah.
A little more laid back.
This is the first song on the record that has my favorite thing. There's that sweet, sweet bass.
Sweet, sweet bass?
That sweet, sweet bass.
Yeah.
I liked this song. It had like a weird kind of gypsy jazz feel.
Yeah.
Very minor.
I was going to say, it almost feels like a musical theater number.
Yes.
There's a real theatricality to a lot of these songs.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like a prime example of that.
Yeah.
A lot of weird kind of minor chords bouncing off of each other and mood shifts.
100%. I think, so I don't have, beyond this, I don't have a ton of notes about their lyrics because by this point in the record, I kind of already tuned out a lot of the lyrics. Kind of like what I was talking about before, like it felt like a lot of flowery language that wasn't saying a lot.
Right.
And I almost kind of treated the vocal just like another instrument.
Sure.
Which I think they did too.
Right.
That's probably intentional, but then I didn't emotionally connect to a lot of the record because of that.
Right. Conceptually. I did say like this one, if it was a little less like theatrical and a little less like it had like some goofy strings and percussive elements that work for the song, but if they weren't there, it could have been like a Nirvana track.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If it was less theatrical and a little
Definitely.
more like angsty and aggressive.
Ooh, I didn't even pick up on that. Yeah, that makes sense.
I could see Kurt Cobain singing this song.
Definitely. Although they did go into their one jam towards the end and went into a section that I felt it seemed very like a James Bond theme.
Yes.
Like with the minor, but the kind of guitar that dun, 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 like it felt very James Bondy.
Mm-hmm. Cinematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they were trying to get this on a soundtrack too.
Maybe. What James Bond film would have been out in 97?
One of the Pierce Brosnan
Goldfinger?
ones.
Or
No, it was. I'm sure James Bond fans are.
right? Wasn't
upset.
Goldfinger a Pierce?
No, Goldfinger was like old school. Goldfinger was like 60. It was 64.
Huh. What am I thinking of?
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye.
Is what you're
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
God. How could I get them so mixed up?
Yeah.
I'm
The World Is Not
embarrassed.
Enough.
World is not enough, yeah.
Tomorrow Never Dies, Die Another Day, and GoldenEye.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It was probably like around that time.
Yeah. I could see this on GoldenEye.
I could too. All right. That's all I got though.
Yep. Same.
Oh man, I'm really hoping that our final verdicts are not displayed in our analysis of the album thus far.
I don't think so.
Okay, because I feel like I sound really tired of the album already.
Well, if you say it, then it's going to sound that way.
That's true. Subtext becomes text.
You need to take a nap, Kylan?
I do need to take a nap. All right, so moving on to track number 4. This is the big one.
The biggin.
Kiss Me.
Kiss me out of the bearded barley nightly beside the green, green grass. Swing, swing, swing the spinning step. You wear those shoes and I will wear that dress. Oh,
I got all the feels hearing this.
Yep.
But also, I don't know if it's just because I've heard it within so many different contexts.
Right.
I didn't feel like this song fit on the record with the other songs. Production-wise, melodically, lyrically, it didn't seem to really fit. It was a lot simpler. And this goes back to what I was initially thinking of the rest of the album kind of holding up this one single.
Right.
I don't know. What'd you think?
I think There She Goes, which we'll get to, and this track could be on an album together.
Yeah.
I think maybe also like, I don't know, maybe like Sister, Mother, and Love could be on that same album.
Yeah.
Like a little happier.
Right.
A little more like poppy.
Right.
Just in general. But yeah, a lot of these other songs don't seem to match that.
But I think it goes back to being a band recording their first album.
Exactly.
Like I said, they probably have worked on all these songs for years.
Yep.
And it's probably just all they have.
Right.
So they're throwing everything at the wall.
Exactly.
Seeing what sticks.
They've got some hooky poppy ones like we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then these others, the majority I would say, that are a little more angular and angsty and
jammy and
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying there.
Yeah. But there's some cool music stuff in here. I like that they did the stops before the second verse.
I was like, hard stop before second verse.
Yeah.
So cool.
It was so cool. That's what I wrote too. I just wrote cool stop.
Yeah. That bass slaps.
Mm-hmm.
Good bass work on this one.
Really good bass work. It starts to feel really like, once again, that is very much of the time.
Right.
But it feels really chunky. And I like that. I
Yep.
like that. It really holds down that low end.
Right. It's a pronounced rhythm section.
Yeah.
Which keeps the ear interested.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of keeps you in the song.
Yeah.
A little more. I gotta know though, Kylan, what the hell is bearded barley?
I'm guessing it's barley that
that can grow a beard?
No, I feel like, I don't know. I have a sense of like bearded barley is maybe like the barley plant before you reap it.
Oh, like reaping the barley is like shaving.
Yeah, like it's like fuzzy. I think it's fuzzy. I'm gonna look it up.
Sure. I just, for those that don't know, the line is "Kiss me out of the bearded barley," and for some reason I've never really analyzed that lyric until now, and I'm just massively confused by it. Like,
Okay, well, you're not the only one. There's lots of, when I Google bearded barley, everything that shows up is question mark, question mark, question mark. Kiss me out of the bearded barley, question mark. What the heck is bearded barley? Kiss me, bearded barley? So
I'm glad I'm not alone.
yeah, it's not.
There's a support group out there for me.
For real. Barley is a cereal that has lots of spikes which resemble a beard. So,
What kind of beards are people looking at that have spikes?
well, I think that's just fuzzy. I think the plant itself is just fuzzy.
Sure.
So, and bearded barley sounds flowery.
Right. Well, I'm just gonna picture barley now with like
Wearing little beards.
massive beards.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Can you picture barley without beards? What does barley look like?
Just grains. Just grains on a stem.
So like wheat?
Sure.
But does it look like oats?
No.
What do oats look like in the wild?
What do bearded oats look like in the wild?
This is freaking me out.
Do they have like mutton chops?
Well, this reminds me of, okay, have you ever seen what a cashew plant looks like?
No, I'm allergic to nuts.
Well,
So
okay,
I don't-
but you can,
I don't really care about
You're not allergic
cashews.
to Googling.
I don't know. I haven't
Plants.
tried. I
Okay.
might have a reaction if I try to Google cashews.
No, I'm going to Google it right now. I'm going to show you. No, it is crazy. Like, okay, just tell me. So even though you're allergic to most nuts, or all nuts, I don't know.
All.
Okay, so even though you're allergic to nuts, what do you imagine like nuts, different nuts growing? Because you've seen like in Texas, there's like pecan trees.
Sure.
Or walnut trees.
Walnuts, almonds, yeah.
So what, can you just tell me? So we're going off on this tangent because I don't have anything else about this song. What do you think a cashew looks like before it's like in a trail mix bowl?
It's like a sort of like Cheeto shape, and it's like green.
Is it
On
like
the
on
outside.
a bush or like does it grow underground? What do you think?
It's like, yeah, it's some kind of bush, and it's like a hanging, like almost like a bunch of bananas, but it's just like cashews.
Okay, do you want to have your mind blown?
Yeah, blow my mind.
Look at that.
Whoa, this is the worst radio ever because the listeners can't see.
They'll look it up.
Oh, okay. Look it up. We'll provide a link in the show notes. That's crazy. Okay,
Isn't that
so
crazy?
I'm just gonna describe
Yes,
to
please.
everybody. It looks like pears or like pomegranates or something with weird little...
Almost like bell peppers or something.
Yeah, or bell peppers with like little poops coming off of the
and
bottom.
the poops, that's the cashew nut.
That's the cashew.
That's the part you pick off and eat.
Well, I'm super glad I'm allergic to nuts now, because that's weird. I don't want to eat that.
That's really gross.
And I don't have to, because I'm allergic to it.
Hashtag ban cashews.
Cashew poop. Well...
So I like the melodica in this song.
Melodica is great. Super fun
Can
line.
you explain a melodica for people that might not know?
A melodica is like a fusion between a really silly woodwind and a tiny piano. So you like play the keys while you blow air into this little plastic tube, and it makes kind of sound. It's amazing. It's the goofiest instrument that people will be really impressed with if you tell them you put it on a record.
Yeah. But it's really fun.
Very fun. I love it.
But I don't think they use it anywhere else on the record.
Nope.
Once again, it's another thing that makes the song feel out of place.
Yeah. But in a good way. I mean, it works for the song.
Yeah.
It's a tasteful inclusion of the melodica.
You got anything else for this song?
I have to give him props for the lyric, lift your open hand, strike up the band, make the fireflies dance, silver moon sparkling.
It's so good.
It was very good.
It is really good.
Again, flowery.
Very flowery.
I think this time it says something.
Yeah.
There's a visual there.
Yeah, definitely.
I can see like the person coming up to propose a dance.
Yeah. Was this song featured? Was this ever featured in a TV show or movie that has a scene with people on a dock? Maybe this is Dawson's Creek. Maybe this is what I'm thinking. Because every time I hear this song, I think of two people kissing around a lot of boats.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, that is... Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not alone.
I can see it.
Okay, that may be the Dawson's Creek thing I'm thinking of.
Either that or we're both having like a shared delusion. Which is
valid.
possible.
Yeah.
Either way, we like the idea of this song being paired with
boat
a
kissing.
Romantic dock scene. Yeah.
Hashtag boat kissing. Hashtag cashew poops. All right, moving on to track number 5, Cashews, Cashews, Cashews.
Cashews.
Now, track number 5 is Easy to Ignore, which is how I felt about this song.
Ooh.
Sick burn.
Throwing some shade.
You and the moon are a beautiful sight to me. The stars in your eyes make it really hard to
I
see.
thought this sounded like Amy Grant doing a Gaelic Nashville tune.
That's interesting. I thought of the Indigo Girls, so basically the same vibe.
Yep.
Literally the same vibe.
Yeah, it was super interesting.
It was very Lilith Fair. There's definitely, like you said, a Gaelic, a kind of an Appalachian influence.
Little mashup.
Yeah, it felt kind of like you could hear, like with the fiddle. Or this didn't feel like fiddle. There is one song in particular where it felt like a fiddle was being played.
Mm-hmm.
This more felt like violin, very Gaelic or old time.
But yeah, I would say also like you could, I mean, I don't know. You say the word fiddle, I think country, but I also do think like Celtic or Gaelic.
Right.
So I don't know, whatever. But there's also some bagpipe, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think towards the end,
which is interesting. There was a interesting feel on the drums. It was like syncopated 4/4 with a 1 and a on the snare, which kind of kept it moving in a weird way, kind of a lilting feel. And I thought it was way too long.
Yes, I wrote that. The instrumental was way too long. My notes I kind of wandered off a little bit, and I wrote, if it were not, so we're sitting by the river listening to this.
Right.
I said, if it were not for this podcast, I'd be asleep right now.
This podcast?
Yeah, listening to the record. If it weren't for the podcast.
Oh, yeah, right.
Like if it weren't for...
As in like you were doing homework.
Exactly.
So you had to stay awake and pay attention.
I don't necessarily mean that as like a bad thing.
Right.
It is very soothing. And it's
yeah.
sitting like while the river was playing, or while the river was flowing, the music was playing with the fiddle, and it just...
So basically you're just like complissalting this song.
Yes, basically. Basically.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, checks out.
That's all I had for it, though. It did feel way too long.
Yep.
Moving on to track number 6, Puedo Escribir.
Yep. Puedo escribir. I can write.
So I didn't realize until doing some research while we were listening to this that I guess most of the lyrics are based on a Pablo Neruda poem.
Okay.
Which I guess makes sense. But this goes back again to the band name and the vibe. It feels very much like a college thing to do.
Right.
When you're in college, you're like, oh, I love Pablo. You're discovering all these things like Steinbeck and Hemingway and Nietzsche and Pablo Neruda.
Deciding that they are everything to you.
Correct.
They're your identity.
So then as a band from New Braunfels, Texas that lives in Nashville, you decide to write a song entirely in Spanish, even though it is not your native language.
Sure.
And it doesn't really work for me.
No, it's super weird. You know, there's a side of me that can appreciate it from an artistic perspective of just like bringing a different sort of feel, a different perspective into the conversation of the album.
Right.
But it also does feel kind of like, look at me, I'm intellectual.
Exactly. Well, then a big problem for me with the song too is I really think a big part of it was that she's not a native Spanish speaker. I could feel her struggling to get through the song.
Right.
Like I think it felt a little out of her range.
Right.
Too. So it didn't emotionally connect with me at all. Like I didn't feel comfortable in it, which it was kind of the vibe of the music too. But if you look at the lyrics, I feel like, hold on, I'm going to pull up the lyrics real quick.
Yeah, but while you're doing that, I totally agree. Like it was kind of pushing her vocal range. And yeah, if it's like a second language kind of situation, like it's not going to connect with the listener as much. You're going to kind of feel that disconnect as she's kind of forcing it. She's trying too hard.
I mean, so the lyrics translate to the night wind revolves in the sky and sings. The night wind revolves in the sky. To hear the immense night still more immense without her. And the verse falls to the soul like dew to the pasture. Tonight I can write the saddest lines about her. I didn't feel that emotionally.
Nope.
Just, and especially if you're going to produce a song that's in a language that you don't speak, that your primary audience doesn't speak, I feel like you should really focus on having that emotional connection. Because there are plenty of songs in other languages that I don't know what they're saying, but you still feel something. Or even like a made-up like Sigur Rós.
Right.
For instance, like everything they sing is in a made-up language, but you can feel
there's an emotion, a really
what
distinct,
he's trying to convey.
Yeah, it lands with you.
There's a huge disconnect between what the lyrics mean and how she's portraying it.
Yeah, because it feels at times like a punk song.
Yeah.
And so for that flowery language, like the dew, the wind, like that sounds like something that should be a really like mellow kind of.
It'd be really cool if it was like just acoustic
song. Yeah, and this
like
did
a lullaby, basically.
Right, and this did not have that feel at all. I don't know how I feel about it, but there's a really interesting rhythmic element. It does, I think I've got this right. It does 2 bars of 6/8 to 1 bar of 2/4 in part of it, and then it goes to like a 2/4 punk beat. In part of it. So it's like 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 and 2 and 1 2 3 4 5 6, which is just very strange. It's cool. It has a nice. I mean, it has a rhythmic identity that separates it from a lot of other, kind of bland 4/4 songs, which I appreciate.
It felt very jammy between the bass and the drums.
Right.
It felt like they were really locked in together on that.
Right.
Which I wrote too. It felt like, if we're going back to the analogy of like this is a live set at a coffee house, this is the song where the bass and the drums jam for 3 minutes before the song starts.
Right.
As the lead singer goes and gets her free cappuccino latte.
Iced hazelnut. Yeah. Right.
To take a break.
And the drummer and the bassist are just like frenzied out.
And they're so stoked.
They're
and
having
no one
a
else
blast.
No one else cares.
Yeah. The one guy in the back that came to see the bassist is like, oh, nice chops.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I know this feels very specific, but I've been there. That's
Oh yeah. I was that guy that showed up to see the bassist.
And you were the drummer.
And I was the drummer.
And I was the drummer.
Somehow.
We've just...
It's a weird song, guys. Listen to it. Please go listen to it. Just because it'll stick in your mind.
That's true. All right.
For better or for worse. No, I don't think so.
All right. We're just blasting through this.
We are, but it's time now for our segment, if this album were a person. So listeners, while we kind of wax philosophical over here, you might think about what you think. Who is this album to you?
If it were to be a person.
If it were to be a person. I guess famous or otherwise.
Yeah.
Kind of the prompt in my mind is a celebrity of some kind.
Right.
But maybe to you, listener, this album is your Uncle Jack.
That's true.
I don't know. What do you think? Have you landed on anybody?
Yeah, I've got a couple ideas, but I'm not settled on anything quite yet.
Okay.
I'm trying to think through it. Can you think of, I can't think of the person I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
Oprah adjacent.
Right.
Because there's all this flowery language, pseudo-spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
People love it, but not as exciting as Oprah. Like a sleepy Oprah. That's my answer.
Sleepy Oprah.
Sleepy Oprah.
Hashtag Sleepy Oprah.
Is who I think this album is. What about you?
Oh, that's amazing. Why is she sleepy again?
Well, just this, if you're thinking of the context of this whole record.
Sure.
It feels very sleepy.
Okay.
Her vocals feel very sleepy. All the flowery language. I wanted to take a nap while listening to it.
Right.
And Oprah sometimes gets excited, like, and you get a car, and you get a car, and here we are. But...
So what's Sleepy Oprah? How would she do it?
Guess you get a car. And you get a car.
You sort of kind of get a car.
And we all just love each other. Amen.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I've been working on my Sleepy Oprah impression for a while.
Yeah, keep working on it. It's going.
I don't really think it
going
sounds
places.
like Sleepy Oprah. I've just been trying to work on that impression for months.
Right. This character that makes no sense. I love it. I'm a
Thanks.
big fan.
Thanks. What about you?
So, I think I've got it. I really feel good about this, and I'm surprised because this album's so strange. This album is Judy Funny of the classic 90s cartoon Doug.
Yeah.
And here's why. She means well. She really does. She has the best of intentions. She cares about her little brother. The little brother, in our case, is like the listener.
Right.
She's always spouting off these platitudes and quoting these people. She's got the beatnik kind of vibe. She's a pseudo-intellectual, and she's not afraid to show it.
Yeah.
So in all the ways that we're talking about, this like Mere Christianity is the band name, and the flowery poem, the different lyrics. Unintentionally, the album is Judy Funny.
I like that. That's really good. That's a lot more thoughtful than my Sleepy Oprah.
I like Sleepy Oprah. I mean, they could hang out. They could go to the coffee shop and listen to Sixpence None The Richer.
Judy Funny and
Sleepy Oprah.
Sleepy Oprah.
Yeah.
I like that.
They could hang.
That's good. So that was our new segment. If this album were a person.
What did you think of it, listeners?
We'll see if we keep it going.
Let us know.
Who knows at this point? Like I said, we're kind of creating this in a vacuum.
It's a lot of fun. It's a fun vacuum.
Yeah.
So back to our analysis here.
Yeah.
Track 7, Kylan.
Wait, track 7?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought we were on track 8.
Wishful thinking.
Oh, yeah. I Can't Catch You, track 7. So that intro, we had to listen back. I made you play it back a couple times.
Yes.
Because I couldn't put my finger on what it reminded me of.
Right.
And then it hit me. The intro sounds a little bit like Snow by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
That's it.
With that guitar, that doo-doo-doo-doo, like with the hammer-ons and pull-offs, and the snare.
The snare.
Sounded very...
Chili Peppers.
Very Chili Peppers.
Yeah, 100%.
I only have one other note on this, so I might go ahead and say it and then give you the floor. When she sings the line "Feeling the Pain," where she kind of goes up, that was the first really interesting vocal line I heard on the whole record.
I'm feeling the pain of all these bags in the way, and I'm thinking you're just gonna run away, and I can't get you.
Oh, really?
That was the first line that I didn't expect.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that kind of kept me hooked throughout. But I kept wanting more of that, and they were really sparse with it. A lot of it was really boring, but every now and then they would do that. She would sing that line and she would go up, and it really kept me interested throughout.
Right. Huh. That's interesting. I didn't like key in on that, but now that you say it, it's true. That was kind of a weird, cool choice vocally. All I said on this one was, is this a Hilary Duff movie?
Oh.
She's on the back of a Vespa with a sexy Grecian god flying down the cobblestone streets of a Mediterranean villa.
I love the Lizzie McGuire movie.
That's how this song made me feel.
Yeah. Which is probably the vibe they were going for.
Yeah.
They're probably like, oh, well, Kiss Me will be on this soundtrack, and this song will be on this soundtrack. Yeah. I know, it all felt very soundtracky.
Which, if that's what they're going for, like, good for them.
I know.
Because there's money there.
That's true. So, I think that goes back to the album as a whole. I didn't really emotionally connect with any of it.
Right.
It all did feel commercial. It felt like it was all very intentionally trying to get on soundtracks and compilation CDs.
Yeah, it's that pseudo-intellectual Judy Funny again.
Yeah, exactly.
Like kind of trying to put on this persona, but not really landing with maybe the real deal demographic.
Yeah. But the thing is, too, honestly, through listening to this record, it does make me want to listen to a lot of their other albums, because this was their first one.
Right.
And it does feel very much like a college band.
Right.
Like a college band that's figuring a lot of stuff out. And I'm curious to see now,
2 or 3 albums down the road,
to see, I don't think it was intentional for them that this one song or the 2 songs on this record became so big.
Yeah, more of a happy accident.
Yeah, I am curious to see how they evolved and changed as a band, and how, if that language in the lyrics kind of changed, if the musicality kind of changed, and maybe they did evolve into a much better band than is shown here.
Maybe so.
So let's do track number 8. The Lines of My Earth. The lines or lives, sorry.
Lines.
Okay.
You had it right.
Sweet. I couldn't read my notes.
It's a weird line.
The Lines of My Earth.
The lines of my earth, so brittle and fertile and ready to die. I need a drink.
The piano is really cool. It's the first real piano that I heard.
That's true. Going off of your coffee shop analogy, to me, this is where the band is transported from the coffee shop into a smoky jazz bar.
Yes.
The song is not jazz, but it wants to be.
Yes, 100%.
It's trying to be jazz hard.
Yes, they even got the upright bass.
They got that muted trumpet. Things are smoky. They're sexy. They're sleepy.
Yeah, trying to get like a New Orleans vibe, like with the muted trumpet. And
I wondered when the lady in the big hat was gonna walk into the Private Eye's office.
Yeah, exactly.
I was waiting
That's what I
for
said.
that.
Yeah, a real noir vibe.
Yep.
Yeah, but okay, so this was the first song that it really hit me. But if you listen to the whole record, one musical thing, we're going to go off into some music nerddom.
Let's do it.
Real quick. One thing that I noticed that they heavily rely on throughout this record, and once I noticed it, it's one of those things, when you're watching a TV show and then the person you're watching it with will be like, hey, do you ever notice that this one actor blinks way too much? And then it bugs you.
All you can see.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is how I felt about this.
Okay.
So they do a chord progression. They really heavily rely on so basically what it's called is they heavily rely on the 5, flat 6, 6 chord progression.
Yeah.
So basically what that means is within a key, if the root note is 1, most songs play, as you go up on the scale, the second note in the scale is 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, 6, 7, back to 1. Most pop songs utilize the 1, the 4, the 5, and the 6. But there's this trick where when you play the 5, and then you play the half note between the 5 and the 6. So it sounds like this. Okay, I thought it was easier to just play it rather than explain it. But they utilize that in almost every song.
Right.
And then it started to really bug me the rest of the record.
That's all you can hear.
That's all I could think of.
Yeah. I noticed that ascending line too. Yeah, it starts to wear on you. You're like, okay, I can see how it works for this song or this song.
Right.
But when it starts cropping up a lot more, it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Mix it up a little bit.
And this goes back to like they're trying to be jazz. But the only other thing I wrote about this song is how are they so jammy yet so musically uninteresting?
Yeah. You're putting words to a feeling that I had while listening to this album. It was like,
because I don't love jam bands,
right?
But
there are times where, as a musician, especially live, you love watching a jam band if they're good.
Exactly. They're, as a music nerd, I can appreciate a lot of the musicality in jam bands, even if I don't necessarily love it.
Right.
And this just felt so boring, which goes back to the soundtrack thing.
Right.
Like, it would be perfect if it was playing under some dialogue of unrequited love, like maybe a fight after the boat kiss.
Right. Walking inconsolably down the lane, it starts to rain.
Yeah.
That's where this song hits.
Exactly. With some voiceover or something that's kind of masking. Yeah.
Right.
It just feels really boring.
I agree. I will say, though, this song to me was interesting because it seems to be about writer's block or wanting to uphold some artistic ideals versus being a sellout or going corporate, which makes me think about the Newsboys.
Yeah.
It makes me think about most of the albums that we've reviewed so far have had a little tangent about being a sellout, or
right. Yeah, maybe it was a cultural thing around that time.
I
of like,
think so.
Like being a sellout was like the worst thing possible, but also everyone desperately wanted to be a sellout.
Right, and the conflict there.
Right. Whereas today, I think in terms of music, like, I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago that was about how branding agencies have sort of become the new record labels.
Right.
And how there's not this stigma, how it was specifically about Tegan and Sarah and some major ad agency and how they got commissioned to write a song for an ad campaign. And they were talking about how their record label wouldn't give them any money to do this. And so, but, there's not this stigma associated with quote unquote selling out.
Right.
But I think that was a huge preoccupation with a lot of bands around this time.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like she can't decide, kind of referring to the lyrics here as she sings them. She says, "The lines of my earth so brittle, unfertile, and ready to die. I need a drink, but the well has run dry." And that's like almost like a writer's block kind of thing, or like I've lost my creative muse or something, and we in the habit of saying the same things all over again for the money we shall make. This is the last song that I write till you tell me otherwise, and it's because I just don't feel it. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Like, that is bleak.
That is a bummer.
For like, as a creative person listening to that, I'm like, man, I feel that. I've been there and it sucks. But also, like, there's an interesting component to this for them because they stand to make some money.
Right. Yeah.
They stand to have some success. And so there's this kind of idealistic artistic
but
vision.
that kind of goes back once again to like the idea of the college band. Like, it feels a little naive.
Right, completely.
It's like, this is your first record and you're already talking about how your creativity is unfertile and the well is dry.
Right.
It feels a little disingenuous.
Right.
It feels like an intellectual exercise, a philosophical exercise, more than a true feeling.
Real life. Yeah. Right. Whereas like Five Iron Frenzy was like talking about how the tour van smelled so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were superheroes, It's just interesting, but I do think this is like part of the 90s music world is selling out, quote unquote, selling out a bad thing?
Right.
Or like, do we just lean into it?
Yeah.
Is there a way to do that? And there's a tension there, I think, for a lot of bands.
Yeah, definitely.
So just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was an interesting thing to throw right in the middle of an album.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. That was a good point too.
But yeah, that's all I got about that one.
Cool. All right, let's move on to track number 9, Sister Mother.
My life is played. My mistakes, broken love, slaps in the face. But I'm trying to care, to dare to embrace your face. Hug him like a brother, kiss her like a sister.
First thing I wrote, cool. They rhymed mother and brother.
Yeah, I said family words. Neat.
So I guess neither of us are really a big fan of this song.
I will say,
Cards on
though,
the table.
you mentioned like a while back, whichever song it was that had the overt biblical reference. I think a lot of this is from some Psalms or Proverbs or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it's like, or maybe some New Testament stuff, because some of it seems kind of like brotherly love, like a kind of Jesus thing.
Right.
But then also like maybe romantic question
I know.
mark.
I really hope the line "Kiss her like a sister" is not sung to the same person as "Kiss me."
Yes. Or even if you'll be her brother, she'll kiss you like a sister. It's like, okay, I hope that's how.
Yeah.
I hope that's all.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was probably a lot of biblical stuff that maybe went over our heads.
Right.
I love the guitar tone.
Yeah. Good guitar.
It was beautiful.
And it like lyrically, it does kind of land back on the kind of overly intellectual
Right.
spot of like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
I don't
It's
understand.
like that faux deep philosophy 101.
Do you even know what you're saying? But yeah, that's all I got.
Me too. All right, let's move on to track number 10. I won't stay long.
Sky is darkening. I can feel it in the air. My heart is sinking. I know winter's on its way.
Besides the obvious "Kiss Me," this might be my favorite song on the record.
Really?
I think so.
Dude, you and I are
What?
finding our areas of disparity. I hated this one.
Really?
I thought I wrote filler track, hate her vox, cool strings, question mark.
Okay,
So
that's
defend
funny.
it.
Okay, so I thought the whole song felt super off kilter.
No, it does.
It feels like the bass doesn't know what the drums are doing, doesn't know what the guitars are doing, doesn't know what the vocals are doing.
Right.
But I think that's intentional.
Okay.
And I like it. Her voice, she's really struggling to hit those notes.
Yep.
But it works in the context of all the other instruments. It's not a breakneck speed. It's one of the faster songs on the record.
Right.
Which I will say I did appreciate because so much of the album is so sleepy.
Right.
I kind of liked
That they injected some energy.
exactly
At this point
I
in
kinda
the
liked,
album.
Like I felt nervous listening through this song.
And you like that?
But I did.
Interesting.
I don't typically, but I think in the context of this record,
Right.
I think I needed something like that.
Sure.
I needed something musically interesting.
That makes
Because so
sense.
much of the rest of the record, we were talking about this before we got back on mic. I was trying to find a way to say this without sounding douchey. I don't feel like they contributed much to the musical conversation. I felt like this album could have also, the exact same album could have been produced by the Indigo Girls or Paula Cole or Tracy Chapman
Right.
or a myriad of other artists. There was nothing that they brought to it in the way that, as much as I disliked Jesus Freak, I still felt like parts of it were an artistic statement that had impact
Right.
and that meant impact.
Yeah. There was a unique quality to some of it.
Yeah.
That
But I
doesn't-
kind of had this feeling a little bit with the 5 Iron Frenzy record, which I think kind of led to my feelings about that in general.
Mm-hmm.
So to go back to this song, I liked that it kind of jolted me. And I felt like there was one part where they did the chord and vocal walk down that felt very Beatles-esque.
Oh, yeah.
Which was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I get
Well, good.
why you wouldn't. I get why you don't.
I think it was kind of chaotic in that way. Like you're talking about each instrument and the vocals not knowing what the other's doing. But maybe I need to listen to it again and consider that was an intentional choice. Because
Yeah.
I just decided kind of right off the bat that I don't like that about it.
Right.
And yeah, I just like whatever it was about her vocal style on this one, I just like couldn't really get into it. That's not to say it was bad.
Right.
It was just
but
not
see,
for me.
that's what I liked. It felt a little more punk rock. It was the first time that I felt the emotion she was trying to get across.
Okay.
It was like we were talking about with the with track number 6,
Right.
where that didn't work.
Right.
I felt like
This time it landed.
it did work.
Yeah.
For this song, but
yeah. That makes sense. So yeah, track 11.
Love. another contender for me
Yeah,
for one of the best songs on the record.
I agree.
I like that they finally gave the bassist some room in the beginning. It was very jammy with just the drums and bass. And the bass is real big in the mix right there.
Yep.
With the guitar coming in with sort of the edge style dotted eighths.
I literally wrote, did they get the Edge to play this guitar?
Yeah. Okay, well, that's the funny thing is later on, I know we were talking, I was like, why do I love this song so much? And I was like, oh, it's because it's a U2 song.
It's a U2 song.
It straight up is a U2 song.
Yeah. From all the way from like the kind of like driving bass and drums with kind of a sparse feel to the guitar tone and the guitar playing to the like massive sound that the song gets once it expands.
Right.
Those strings come in. It's huge. It sounds like a stadium rocker.
I know. It totally is a U2 song.
Like
it's like War era or like Octune Baby, like you said.
Yeah.
Very much U2. But I thought too, at the beginning, that sort of intro felt really long. And going back to my analogy of if this was a set, like coffee house, this is the part where the lead singer introduces the rest of the band.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, and just rocking that rhythm section, killing it on the skins. You know, we got the bass player too, and then the bass like does a little thing, and everyone kind of politely claps.
And over here we got Matt Slocum.
And then the barista goes, woo! And everyone else is just kind of politely clapping.
Yeah, this was at the point where baristas were still like happy, nice people.
Right.
Before the third wave hipster barista times.
I will say too, she says the line about love that it is patient, it is kindness, which is the other overt biblical reference.
Yes, there it is.
Yeah.
Also, the strings that build huge, like I talked about, kind of halfway through. So obviously, there are a lot of bands that do this to kind of grow a song when you think that it's gotten as big as it's going to get. Then all of a sudden, there's a huge kind of ascending string line.
Right.
Obviously, there's a lot of bands that do that, but to me, it seemed like a lot of Arcade Fire songs that I've heard.
Yeah.
In a good way, like just expansive, like intentional compositional choice.
Right.
Which makes me want to see this song live.
Yeah, this felt like the least coffee shop. Like this felt like the most full band, like most thought through, besides, once again, the obvious singles.
Right. But a lot of intentional musicianship. Agreed?
I would have loved to hear more stuff like this.
You would have loved to?
On the record.
Yeah. Agreed.
But
and maybe that's the direction they were heading in. Like you talked about wondering, a few albums down the road, like maybe they do some more of this.
Yeah. But also, it may be I'm just a big U2 fan.
Sure. You talking U2 to me?
Get out of here. All right. Track number 12, Moving On. I loved the phaser on the vocal.
So what was the name of this song?
Moving On?
Yeah, I know we're moving on, but what song are we talking about?
Who's on first?
No. Why is on third?
Cashews.
Sleepy Oprah and more.
Track 12, Sleepy Oprah. Moving on.
It has got into my head, permeates the path I tread, but I tread on moving on, and a new and happy song I can sing.
I love the phaser. See, we're goofier when we're in person. I like doing it in person.
Me too.
Because on Zoom, there's the disconnect, and I'm just trying to like...
And the timing, the jokes don't land.
I know. I don't know if they land now either, but...
They do for me.
That's all that matters. So listen, I like the phaser on the vocal.
Yes, and the guitar.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Very cool.
I haven't really heard that kind of phaser effect on a vocal throughout a whole song, really.
Yeah, that's true.
I found that really interesting. That was a really cool musical touch.
That's all I wrote.
Okay, well, I got a couple more things.
What do you got?
I feel like so this song in particular sort of highlighted to me the thing that this album suffered from, that I think a lot of 90s bands, a lot of bands around this time doing this kind of music suffered from. This idea of trying to showcase unique melodies and unique musical lines and chord changes that I don't really like.
Oh,
so this is very subjective, obviously.
Right.
But, a lot of the the vocal line kind of goes up really high, then down really low.
Mm-hmm.
And the chord changes they modulate between major and minor on certain chords that don't necessarily fit within the key.
Yeah, it's like they didn't.
It's trying
need
to be
do
jazz.
that.
I like
Yeah.
when you said that. It's trying to be jazz.
Right.
And it's not.
Nope.
And it drives me a little bit crazy.
Yep. It feels like a forced choice.
Right. And like I said, it's not just Sixpence None The Richer, and it's not just this record.
Right.
It's a lot of bands around this time.
Right.
That I just can't really get behind.
It's like they found their genre and then they were like, how do we dress it up and get fancy and interesting? And didn't quite work.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's all I got.
Yeah. Well, last track?
Last track.
Track 13.
We made it this far. There she goes.
Where? Classic 90s acoustic guitar intro.
Yes. Oh, we should mention though that this is a cover of The Laws, or I think it's just The Laws.
Okay.
Like la la la.
LA. Yeah.
Yeah. This is
Interesting.
really funny though. I took a screenshot because when I Googled There She Goes, the first thing that pops up, people also ask, what movie is the song There She Goes? Who wrote the song There She Goes? And what happened to Sixpence None The Richer?
Oh my God. Let us just publicly apologize
Yeah.
for the Googling.
What happened to them is that they're featured on the 4th episode of Church Jams Now.
Yeah. Congrats.
Congrats. Yeah.
Go team.
Yeah, I love very, very 90s acoustic intro. But
Yeah.
this also feels so different from the rest of the album.
Yeah, like I said, it works with Kiss Me
Yeah.
and Maybe Love and
Yeah.
a couple of other like happier, poppier tracks, but most of them don't fit with this style
Yeah.
at all.
I did like that they did another music nerd thing. On the second chorus, notes that should have been major, they did the minor inversion, which was really cool. It kind of kept it interesting because there's not a lot of lyrics. Melodically, it doesn't change a whole lot.
Right.
So doing those little changes kind of kept you interested. It's also like a brisk song, like what, 2:44 or something like that.
Yeah,
It's pretty
it was
quick.
one of the shorter ones, which makes sense that it became a radio hit, you know?
Right.
There's also a lot of very like focused, specific stops, rolls, and fills on the drums.
Yeah.
And like, I thought like tasteful bass lines as well.
Mm-hmm. The bass was real chunky again too, holding down that low end,
Yeah.
which I enjoyed.
Which again kind of keeps the ear intrigued,
yeah.
keeps the listener kind of bopping along. Yeah, very fun.
It was. So we did it. We went through the whole self-titled Sixpence None The Richer record.
We sure did.
I think, TJ, you have a very important question.
I do. Does Oprah use any sleep aids to get so sleepy?
NyQuil, baby.
NyQuil, baby.
You get a NyQuil. You get a NyQuil.
Official sponsor of Church Jams Now.
You get an Ambien.
No, they're not.
Good night, Gail.
Good night. Ooh, Oprah. Good job. That was my Judy Funny, everybody. Did you figure it out?
So follow us, support us on Patreon if you want to hear our spin-off show, Judy Funny and Sleepy Oprah, our terrible improv show.
Kylan, is Sixpence None The Richer's self-titled album a flop or a bop?
Man, I know that I initially said that this was going to be a flop for me.
Yeah, you did.
And I hated saying it.
I know.
I hate it every time.
I saw the pain in your eyes.
And I tried really hard throughout this whole record.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I really came in with an open mind, an open heart.
Yeah, good for you.
But I came away Sixpence None The Richer. Oh. I think this was a flop, man. Like I said, it goes back to essentially, they didn't add anything.
Mm-hmm.
This could have been any band.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of Kiss Me and There She Goes. I would not give a shit about this record. I would not go through I don't think there's any time where I would go through now, even on like a road trip or anything. I wouldn't sit down and listen to this record in its entirety.
Yep.
I would put Kiss Me and There She Goes on like a Throwback Thursday playlist.
Sure.
Or a Sound of the 90s compilation disc.
Right. Or a Die Hard Dawson's Creek compilation. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There were some cool moments. I think the big thing for me, though, too, is, you know, we've kind of talked about this before. Like, you are typically a little more focused on lyrics. Like we listen to music a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. And I'm very much a vibe person. Right. And the vibe just made me sleepy. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't connect with it.
Yeah.
It sounded like great background music. It just didn't do it for me, man.
Yeah.
That bums me out.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the case. What about you?
I think I'm none the richer.
Yeah.
For listening to this album. I think it's a flop.
Yeah.
A lot of the same stuff you've said. A lot of it just kind of is bland and kind of washes out of my brain as soon as I've heard it.
Yeah, like it was hard this time because usually when we've done the show separately as well, I know we've kind of had our headphones and listened to the songs a little bit as we're talking about them. And this time I was kind of struggling to recall
the songs.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's a bad sign.
In one ear and out the other.
Yeah. When that's happening, when you can't even place it,
right.
That's a bad sign.
As soon as we finished listening to the record and we went to go walk around, we both had There She Goes stuck in our head.
She goes.
That was so good.
I don't know if it's just me, but to their credit, to this band's credit, well, to their credit and the writing behind There She Goes and Kiss Me, I don't know if this is just me or if it's like a thing that happens to a lot of people, but with a lot of bands that have kind of some of those iconic hits, but you don't really know any of their other songs, I find that a lot of times I can just like lump them into one song. So right. Kiss me, and there she goes.
Yeah, well that's what, yeah.
So kiss me.
Yeah.
Just a loop, man. And like, it's catchy, it's good.
Yeah.
And maybe like, those were the two good ideas.
Well, okay, so I wondered too, so to go back, so I did look up the liner notes of this record.
Right.
One of the weird things is they had like 6 different engineers on the record, and everyone else that's not in the main band is just listed as musician.
Okay.
But Steve Taylor,
does our boy Steve.
He Mr. Nasty himself. I'm calling him Mr. Nasty now.
Sure.
He did have a producing credit, so I'm wondering if he only maybe worked on those kinds of songs because he knows his pop music, man.
True. I could see some Steve fingerprints on these songs.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger ones. Could be.
Who knows? Well, I think that's all we got, man.
Yeah.
So join us next week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We'll link to those in the show notes.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Yes.
We super appreciate it. Tell all your friends, tell everybody. Leave a review, rate us on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. I listen through Stitcher. They're not a sponsor. I just really like the app.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all we got.
Yep. Stay tuned for Volume 5.
Church Jams Now.
Of Church Jams Now.
You get a card. You get a card.
Dad. It's like grandma.
I know.